Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Well, thank you, Catherine and Sherry and the rest of the group for having us here. Very excited to share with you guys tonight. And we're just going to start by diving right in and just get started here. We'll do intros in just a second. So you might be familiar with Frederic Laloux. He's said that the level of consciousness of an organization cannot exceed that of its leader. That's from his book, Reinventing Organizations. Maybe you're joining us here today because your team has hit a plateau in their growth and you're not sure how to help them improve. Maybe your organization isn't achieving the results you believe are possible. Or maybe you haven't seen any significant growth in yourself in a while, and because of that, you feel stuck. Whatever your reason for being here today, we're glad that you've joined us for our discussion. Our objective today is to equip you with a framework that will help you unleash the awesomeness of your team. We'll be leveraging the Immunity to Change framework, which is created by Robert Keagan and Lisa Lahey from their research and subsequent book, Immunity to Change, How to Overcome It and Unlock the Potential in Yourself and Your Organization. We trust that through this session tonight, you'll discover a leverage point that will help your teams get to the next level of performance. But be warned, your team's not necessarily the one that needs to change. You are. And that's the book there that we'll be using throughout.
Okay. And so, yeah, so here on the slide, we'll just take a second to introduce ourselves. I guess first thing we want to say is just thank you to Catherine and Sherry and the Agile Denver team for organizing. And thank you guys all for participating. We were really sad that we weren't able to see you in person at Mile High Agile this year. And so having an opportunity to connect like this is really meaningful for us. So, you know, as it said, this is Brock Argue. I'm Erkan, Kadir. We're both certified enterprise coaches and certified team coaches through the Scrum Alliance. We consider ourselves Agile coaches, relationship systems coaches, as well as vertical development coaches. Now, it's that vertical development part that's going to be heavily favoring our talk tonight, and you'll see why as we kind of get through here. Our company is the Superheroes Academy. We're based out of Calgary, Canada, and we're available globally for Agile team coaching, Agile training, and we offer most Scrum Alliance certifications through online mentorship programs as well. And if you didn't know, Calgary is actually a sister city with Denver. We're directly above you, have very similar weather, very similar culture, and we're about the same distance east from the same Rocky Mountains as you guys are. So have a kinship a bit there. Okay, so taking a look at our agenda, we're going to spend a couple minutes just introducing change and why it's so hard. And then we're going to introduce you to the Immunity to Change framework. And then we'll work through a specific challenge or goal that you have by practicing that framework in a bit of a workshop.
Okay, so first thing we're going to start out with is a true or false quiz for you. And as we go through each of these questions, you can just think, you know, for yourself, whether you think the statement would be true or false as we go through. And Erkan, we can show these just kind of one at a time as we go through. And so for the first statement that we have here, so true or false, only 12.3% of people who experience a cardiac event that required them to change their habits regarding all three of diet, exercise, and smoking were able to do so. And so maybe just a quick show of hands or post something in the chat. Do you think that's true or do you think that's false? Let's see here. True, true, true. Okay, a bunch of true. Okay, let's go to the next one and see what we have there. And so our next statement says only 20% of people trying to lose weight are successful at maintaining long-term weight loss. And that's kind of defined as keeping the weight off for a year or more. True or false? What do you think on that one? Okay, lots of trues. Okay, and our last statement there. Only 1/4 of smokers who say they want to quit are able to do so each year. True or false? Okay, it's a very agreeable audience tonight.
Yeah, I like that.
There's a couple of falses. We got a couple of falses. So kind of just to converge on some answers here. So looking up some of the research here, we've got some links there that we use to pull this information. For the first statement, only 12.3% of people being able to change diet, exercise, and smoking when required because of cardiac event. So that's false. It was actually only 4.3% that are able to do that. So much smaller than even that 12% number. For the second one, 20% of people trying to lose weight being able to maintain that weight loss. And so that is true. So that is about the number that, keeping weight off for a year or more. And then the last one, 1/4 of smokers who want to quit are able to, and that's false. It's actually only 10%. And so these are people who have expressed a desire to quit, and only 10% of them are able to do that each year.
Yeah, I'm told that nicotine addiction is one of the hardest to break.
Yeah, and so this is an interesting point as well, which was highlighted to us in one of our other talks on this one. Is these aren't just necessarily about change, because there is addiction involved here. We are highlighting about change though, but that is a good point, that these are very difficult habits, we'll say, and potentially addictions as well that are very difficult to change. Yeah.
Okay. So as Brock mentioned, I mean, these are changes that in a lot of cases, literally lives are on the line, and people want the change, but they're just not able to. And so I'm curious from your perspective, and we've got some good participation on the Zoom chat here. So let's keep that going. And I just want to do like a quick, 1 or 2 minute brainstorm of all the different reasons why you think change might be difficult in these cases. So any reason why change might be hard that you can think of, just throw it in the group chat. Okay. People feel that what they are doing is working and it doesn't need fixing. Okay. So maybe they're not motivated, or they don't even see the need to change in the first place. Yeah. What else? Fear. Yeah. Unknown discomfort, lots of things. Yeah. Another one for fear. This is good. And these are all, there's truth to all of these, by the way. There's a lot of reasons why change might be hard. We don't even know what needs to change. Yeah, we don't know how to get started. We want something different, but what do we even, what is, like, we want something to stop maybe, but what takes its place, right? We can't see a different way. Yeah, it's our perspective maybe needs changing there. Pain of changing is worse than the pain of the situation. Yeah, or at least the perceived pain of changing, definitely. Lack of self-awareness. Thank you, Mike, for that one. That's a big part of what we're going to be talking about is just that awareness piece. Lack of direction. Yeah. Too much work and overwhelming. Okay, great. And again, I think there's some truth to all of these. So thank you guys for that brainstorm. So what we're going to share with you next is the perspective on why change is hard from the authors of this book, Keagan and Lahey, as well as from those who practice developmental psychology or developmental coaching. So just curious, maybe show of hands or in the chat or whatever, how many people have read this book already? Okay, so it might be new to people. Cool. Well, what Keagan and Lahey found is that the real challenge with change is very rarely due to a lack of skills and willpower. And skills and willpower is generally where we want to go, right? Like, I just need to buckle down and do this, or I just need to read the book on it or whatever. But what they found and what they assert is that the real challenge with change is often an inability to close the gap between what we passionately want and what we're actually able to do. And so we just can't do it. And they named that gap an adaptive challenge. And they named it that because it's something that requires real personal growth of us as individuals. Now, Keagan is one of the pioneers and world authorities in developmental psychology. And what he's found is that our mental maturity actually, or also known as complexity, also evolves in a series of very predictable stages. And at every stage of growth, everything is different, including our values and how we make meaning of the world. And reaching later stages of mental complexity helps us more adequately lead and manage in a world of high volatility and uncertainty. And so by definition, then, this development here, or what we're calling vertical development, is also critical if we're going to be successful applying agile methods in our organizations. So these adaptive challenges, they're the ones where we need to be able to access a later level of mental maturity than we currently have available to us. And unfortunately, we often treat adaptive challenges as if they were simply technical ones that we could be resolving quickly or just by learning a new skill. So for example, if I'm having trouble empowering other people on my team, I might choose to meet the technical part of that challenge by looking for a quick fix and simply projecting the issue onto the team members and taking on the perspective that it's their fault, that I can't empower them because they lack the skills, they're not mature enough, they're not trustworthy, they're not going to do the right job, the same job I can do. On the other hand, I might recognize that overcoming a need to be seen as the expert in the room all the time, or maybe overcoming that, going back to the word fear that you guys brought up in the chat room. Maybe I have fear around trusting others, or that they'll actually be competent enough to do the work. Overcoming those things is actually an adaptive challenge because it requires me to grow as an individual and as a leader, and in many cases as an agilist. And so something I want to normalize here is we all encounter both types of challenges every day. We're all human and nobody's perfect. And as soon as we, get over one adaptive challenge, we open up a whole new world of possibilities with new adaptive challenges. So just want to normalize that. And these challenges are different for everybody. So, my technical challenge might be your adaptive challenge and vice versa.
Okay, so let's look at the framework a little bit that we're talking about here. So immunity to change is a framework that spurs the vertical development needed to overcome adaptive challenges, as Erkan was mentioning there a minute ago. This framework recognizes, or rather helps us recognize, that there are very logical reasons for doing the things we do, and that these actions often move us away from the goals that we say we want to achieve. So you'll notice here, just on the picture of the overall framework, that there's a reinforcing relationship between the commitment or goal of what we want to improve and the hidden commitments that keep us from successfully making the necessary changes to achieve that goal. This framework also tells us that there are things that we do or don't do that work directly against our stated improvement goal. Our big assumptions form the basis for acting or not in ways that detract from where we want to be. So we're going to bring this framework to life by walking through an example of what this might look like. We'll use the concept of an immunity map, which is a tool from Keagan's book, to highlight how each parts of the immunity to change framework works together to help you see your own immunity. So this is an immunity map, and it's a tool that creates awareness for you regarding why it's difficult to achieve a specific goal. And, as we talked about, there's some of those items in the chat that came through about why it's challenging to change and whatnot. And we're specifically going to look at how your actions and assumptions are actively working against your goal. So what we have here is a blank immunity map, and we're going to walk through an example of a leader and how they filled out this immunity map for themselves. This is a real life example, real life leader with real life challenge that they had faced. And you can see from the framework that we just looked at for the immunity to change, those 4 sections are shown here on the immunity map that you see in the 4 columns there. Okay. And so let's chat a bit about our leader that we're going to follow as our example through here tonight. And so this is a leader who's leading a team that has historically been one of the higher performing teams in the organization. And it's generally the first choice of team that team members want to join, whether they're new or have an opportunity to switch teams or whatnot. On this team, there have recently been grumblings among the team members as to the treatment by others on the team. And at the same time, the interest from employees wanting to join this team has all but dried up. The leader figured this was a temporary situation and didn't see a connection between their behavior and the behavior that their team was demonstrating. So this went on for a few months for this leader, and nothing that the leader did caused the team to change their behavior in any significant way. During year-end reviews, the leader was confronted about this situation by their VP, who suggested that the leader think about how they might be contributing to the situation. The leader realized that he had judged the team to be lacking emotional intelligence, which guided his interventions of providing training on soft skills. This training didn't seem to improve the situation at all. He then realized that this judgment about the team lacking emotional intelligence was actually a projection of what was happening for him personally. That projection being that the leader himself lacked social intelligence. And so you can see that'll end up being the goal that this leader wants to focus on. And so what was happening is, as the leader, others were showing up in the same way that this leader was showing up. So this realization moved the leader to look inward to better understand his contribution to the situation. And so, the first step with the immunity map is determining what your improvement goal is. So this is something that will have a positive, big impact on you and those around you. And so as you see here, our leader from our example decided on becoming more socially intelligent. And this was something that's important to them and to their team and probably others around them in their life. And it's entirely focused on the leader. So that's also important, that your goal is entirely focused on yourself. This leader would further go on to describe his goal of increasing social intelligence by being more aware, of what's going on for others, bringing increased empathy to interactions with others, and reacting in ways that are appropriate for the situation.
Okay, thanks, Brock. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow along with the leader example as we fill out this immunity map column by column by working through an adaptive challenge of your own. Okay, and so step 1 of that process is going to be to head over to the link, which I'm going to paste into the Zoom chat here for everybody. So that link is http://tiny.cc/you-need-to-change. And you're going to get a copy of the immunity to change worksheet with the 4 columns on it. Okay. So we'll just give everybody a second to download that, and then maybe just put a note in the chat or just come off mute if you're having any trouble with that. So you can either print this and work through it with us, or you can, if you have a PDF editor, you can do it on your computer, or you can simply follow along with a pen and a piece of paper. That also works just as well. And Sherry, thanks for sending the link there. Okay. Does anybody need more time to download that? Cool. All right. Got it. Cool. Thanks for the confirmation, Linda. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by filling out the first column on the left here, which is labeled improvement goal. Okay. And as Brock mentioned, we want to identify just a single goal for the purposes of this exercise, because not all immune systems are actually worth our time. And so what we want to do at the start here is just to spend some time helping you pick a really worthy goal for you. And so here are 4 criteria on the screen that you can use to test the quality of your goal. 1, it's important to you. So this is a big deal, and you actually feel like you need to change for some reason. Okay. Number 2, it's important to somebody else. So for the purposes of practicing tonight, selecting your own goal and going with that is good. But the best way to make sure that you have a good goal is to cross-reference it with feedback from your friends, your peers, your direct reports, your boss, and simply just ask them, what's the one thing that would make you better from their perspective? Number 3, the goal, this one's maybe unfortunate a little bit, but it needs to be focused on you, because the unfortunate reason is we can't change anybody who's not actually here tonight, and so that's why we focus on just ourselves. And then the last one is that this should be not a technical challenge, but this should be an adaptive challenge. So the goal shouldn't be something that we can accomplish just by learning something new or picking up a new skill or whatever. It should, clearly involve our own personal growth as a person. Okay, so it should be hard. There's some rub, for us when we think about that. And then just a note on, when you're selecting your goal, it should be something that's written in terms of something positive that you actually want to see happen, and not as something that you want to stop doing. And you'll see why we phrase the goal in that way, in that positive way, when we get to the second column. So we're going to give you guys, let's say 90 seconds to just think through that, and just pick something that you can use to practice with for tonight. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have you guys get into pairs, and you're going to spend a couple minutes just coaching each other through these 4 criteria and helping each other make sure that you have a really good goal to work with tonight. So I'll give you 90 seconds individually for that. And then feel free to jump in with any questions if you have any. Okay, so we'll call that good enough for now. And Brock's going to have breakout rooms with pairs ready. For the purposes of the breakouts, Catherine and Shuri, we're assuming that you guys are participating. Is that a fair assumption?
Whatever you'd like, sure. You can participate.
Okay, great. And then, so when you're in the breakout room, just reminder, your role is to help your partner go through the 4 points here and just make sure that they've got a good goal in front of them. So we're only going to give you a couple minutes for that exercise, and we'll see you back here shortly.
Okay, and so I'm going to open up the rooms. You'll be added to the rooms automatically, so there's nothing you need to do. There'll be a timer that's counting down, and it'll bring you back automatically at the end of the time as well. Okay.
That's one more question. Is our goal just to confirm that we have a good goal and to check in with each other on that, or we're trying to walk through the whole worksheet?
Great question. What you said at the start. So the
Okay.
former.
Yeah,
just confirm we have a good goal picked out for each other or
Yeah.
for ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll walk you through the rest of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't skip ahead. We'll give you some tips along the way so that you do it effectively.
Hi, the person that I was with left.
Oh no. Okay, who are you with?
Prasaf.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Um,
well, you may as well just stay here for now. There's like a minute left.
Yeah.
And then we'll sort that out for the next one, next round of breakouts. You want to chat through your goal with me for a minute?
Yeah, sure. My goal is to pick a class and a book to read that's going to help me in my next position. Don't know what it is yet, but I come up with a lot of different reasons why I don't really need to do that, or I start the book and I don't finish it because there's more interesting books I might want to read. So as far as taking the time for development, I don't necessarily do that well, and I need to do this. So
What's the purpose? Like, what are you trying to accomplish by reading a book?
well, or take a class. I know I guess I just want to be more business savvy. Maybe that's
Okay. Yeah, and so if you think through those 4 points that we had, because there's an underlying purpose behind what you're trying to do. Reading a book or taking a class, learning a skill isn't necessarily an adaptive challenge, but the reason, under that probably is, right? And so maybe just even thinking that through a little deeper in terms of, what's important to you, focused on your own development, your own growth, that type of thing. Yeah. And that might help outline what that would be for you.
Okay.
Okay. And it looks like we are all back. So Erkan, you're on mute. Classic Zoom.
Oh yeah, there we go.
There you go.
I'll get it. So thank you, Brock. And so completely optional, but just as a debrief, is anybody interested in sharing their improvement goal with the group, just so that we know what we're working with tonight?
I can share, but I did in the breakout room. I didn't hear anything. So,
oh,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe that one is the curiosity, asking question. The second one, then there can be maybe listening.
Yeah.
Won't be able to listen, don't talk. Yeah.
Those are wonderful examples of adaptive challenges that would enable us to be effective leaders in an agile environment, and there's probably an interrelated relationship with the two. I would suspect that if you ran through an immunity map with both goals, they would each show up on the other map in one column or the other. So thanks for sharing that. Maybe one more.
I have talked about improving my facilitation and communication skills.
Great. Perfect. Okay. Wonderful. So let's move on to the next column here.
Okay. And so we're going to chat about the second step in the immunity map here, column number 2. And what we're going to do here is list the behaviors that you're doing or not doing that work against your improvement goal. Okay. And so thinking back to our leader here, this leader has listed the following things that they're doing or not doing that work against their improvement goal. So they dismiss people as complainers instead of extending empathy to them. They overreact or show frustration when things don't go the way they expect them to. Change the subject to something about themselves or their own experience instead of listening to other people with deep empathy and curiosity. Fail to cultivate daily habits that promote their own self-care. Engage in toxic behaviors such as stonewalling when they don't get their way. Okay. And so what we're going to do, similar as we just did here, is you're going to take a minute or two to fill out the column number 2 for yourself for the goal that you've selected. Okay. And, we're looking for things that you're doing or not doing that are actually moving you away from the improvement goal. And here again, we have some criteria that will help you fill out that column. And so we're looking for a fearless inventory of all of the things that you're doing or not doing that actually work against the goal. So quantity is important here. The more, the better. We're not worried about what the items are. We're just kind of brainstorming right now. The more concrete the behavior, the better. You may want to consider feedback you've received from others or things that you've heard, over time from other people, and include those items or behaviors in your column 2. And we also want to pull forward things that undermine your goal. So we're not looking for anything positive here. So this is going to be a list of things that just are not helpful towards what you're trying to accomplish as your improvement goal. Okay. And so we'll give you a couple of minutes just to write by yourself and come up with some of those, and then we'll move forward from there in our pairs. Okay. So hopefully that gives you enough time just to get a few ideas down of things that you are doing or not doing that would take you away from your stated improvement goal. We'll put you back into the breakouts, and same idea as last time. Just have a conversation with those that you're in the room with related to the items that they have and the criteria that we have here as far as crafting things that are definitely taking them away from their goal. And then I know a couple people ended up with rooms where their partners had left, so I've paired you up. So hopefully all the rooms should work out this time. And same idea, you'll come back here automatically when time is up. Okay, so we'll see you back here in a couple of minutes. We are still recording. And I've generally been putting you in an empty room, so you can always just come back if you want. Yeah. You're still on mute, though. Yeah. We'll be back in a couple of seconds. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Good, everyone back here. Excellent. So I'm curious, what are some examples of items that you put in column 2?
Do you want people just to share verbally or put it in the chat?
Just shout out some of them, sure, or in the chat, whichever is easiest for you.
I'll go. So I have written my goal was to improve my facilitation and communication skills. So what I'm doing right now is I talk less often in the meetings. I'm not funny in the meeting. And I agree with the loudest person in the room.
Okay, yeah.
Not letting, not everybody is participating, but just I go with the flow. So not making them participate. And I have to improve my domain knowledge. I don't have much of a domain knowledge. So that's why probably I talk less in the meetings.
Okay.
That's it. These are the points of it.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the, oh, sorry, was there someone else that had? Yeah, okay. One of the interesting things with column 2, right, is trying to improve by addressing the behaviors that we put in column 2 doesn't work. This is addressing technical challenges, right? And so we're trying to take that technical approach to the adaptive challenge, which is the goal that you've written down in column 1. So we cannot actually act on these behaviors directly and have a successful outcome on our goal. So that's just something to keep in mind as we continue to move forward. And you'll kind of see how this all pulls together as we get to the end of the immunity map. So we'll move on to column 3 and talk about that for a little bit. And do you have our slide, Sandy, there, Erkan?
You bet.
Okay, awesome.
Right.
This is a technical challenge, not an adaptive one. So, yeah.
Well, I don't know about me.
So when we look at our third step, column 3 is hidden competing commitments. Okay. And so you're going to list out these hidden commitments that you have that actually compete with your improvement goal. And so you can see here that the leader that we're following had these hidden commitments to not being rejected, to not being embarrassed, shamed, or humiliated, to maintaining their beliefs as truth, to being recognized and acknowledged as important and special, and to not facing what they need to change about themselves. Now, you might be asking, how did this leader come up with these competing commitments that by definition are not immediately visible to them since they are hidden?
Great question, Brock. So the answer to that question is, unlike the first two columns, column 3 is actually a two-step process. And what I want to point out is that little worry box, that little box that's titled the worry box in column 3 there that we're pointing to on the slide. Now, this worry box is going to act as the raw material for your third column, hidden competing commitments. And the way that we generate that raw material in the worry box is, what I want you to do is just systematically work from top to bottom for each entry in column 2. Okay. And so for each entry in column 2, you're going to ask yourself, if I imagine myself doing the exact opposite of this thing in column 2, what is the most uncomfortable, worrisome, or outright scary feeling that comes up for me? And so, and then whatever shows up for you, you enter that in the worry box. And so the goal here is to allow ourselves to vicariously experience just a little bit of that feeling, and then only then kind of try to put it into words. And just a note for this section, if you haven't gotten to a place of genuine fear here, this isn't going to work. And so you need to feel yourself or get to a place where you feel yourself at risk in some way, maybe where you're unprotected from something that feels dangerous. And, you know, before we ask you to fill out the worry box, I'll say that this one is maybe a little bit more intimate than the rest. And so we're not going to be putting you into breakouts or sharing what goes in there. We're just going to give you 2 minutes to work on this individually. And so please know that you have permission to tell on yourself as honestly as you can for the sake of your own goal.
Is it possible to see the slide that showed the example of what column 3 lists could look like? Thank you.
Well, so yeah, here is the slide. And so just remember, Marie, that what you're seeing here as a result of the column 3 entries, that's actually going to be the next step that we build on top of what goes into the worry box. And we're going to show you how to do that next. So, but that being said, this is the slide.
Okay. So we're not supposed to get there yet.
Yeah, no, just stick with
okay.
Just stick with the worry box. And then again, it's you're basically flipping those column 2 entries of like what you're doing or not doing against your goal into
okay.
What's the fear behind that action.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. How's everybody else doing on time? Are we good to move to the next step? Do you need more time? Okay, cool. So it looks like we can keep moving forward. Okay, wonderful. So the next, we're going to move on to the step 2 of column 3. So generating possible competing commitments. Now, the reason for using the metaphor of an immune system when we talk about immunity to change and immunity map is that we actually create ways of dealing with the anxieties in our worry box that make perfect sense given the fears that we're trying to avoid. And we actually become actively committed to making sure that those fears don't happen, either consciously or unconsciously. And so our next step is we want to make those hidden commitments that we have conscious and explicit by converting each fear in the worry box into a third column competing commitment. And so we're still not looking for any solutions to the goal or to the problem just yet. But that will come. And so, three criteria that you can use to convert each one of those worries into column 3 hidden commitments are: number 1, each entry is clearly a commitment to some type of self-protection for myself as an individual. Each commitment makes some or all of the column 2 behaviors that work against your goal perfectly sensible when you think about them. Like, yeah, I'd want to avoid that fear, so I'm going to do this thing. Because we don't do things that work against our goals for no reason. Example number 3, or reason, point number 3 that we want to watch out for, we can see exactly why merely trying to eliminate the column 2 behavior is just not going to work at this point. Okay. And so when you get really good column 3 entries, your map should start to take shape. It should stop looking like just a collection of notes on a piece of paper. And you should start to be able to step back and see a single coherent picture where your immunity map is interacting and interdependent with across the 3 columns. It should become immediately apparent that you've got, one foot on the gas trying to accomplish the goal, and then another foot on the brake at exactly the same time, kind of holding you back. And so if you look at your map at this point and you say, wow, I'm actually really stuck here. How could I possibly make progress on this goal when I have all this stuff working against me? Then that's actually exactly where you should be at this stage, and it means that you've done the map well. So we'll give you another 2 minutes to convert those entries in your worry box into column 3 hidden commitments. And this is maybe one of the more complicated steps in the process, I guess. So if there's anything that wasn't clear or that we can rephrase for you, just let us know.
Yeah, I'm curious about like how we're supposed to phrase it. And I think maybe back to Marie, like looking at the examples, are we supposed to be like, I'm afraid of X, or I don't want? Is there a good formula, or are you just trying to articulate?
I think one of the things that's helpful here is to think of things you're committed to, right? So
Okay.
I'm committed to this, right? And so like the example, like some of them were like, I'm committed to not being embarrassed, or, that type of thing. And so it's not necessarily I'm afraid of, although you might say
Okay.
I'm committed to not feeling this feeling. That could be one of them, but that type of idea.
Yeah, I'm committed to making sure this doesn't happen in some way.
Yeah.
That helps.
Okay, and we're not going to do breakouts again on column 3 for the same reason as reason why we didn't do them in the worry box, but we'll do them again on the next column here. Okay, so let's move forward.
Okay, so that brings us to column 4, big assumptions. And so this is the final step in completing your immunity map. And you're going to list the big assumptions that you have, which leads you to engage in the behaviors from column 2. Okay. And these are the behaviors that run contrary to your improvement goal that you see in column 2. So our leader here in our example has listed the following big assumptions. Our leader assumes that people are out to get them. They assume that their value is in what they do or do not do. They assume that being wrong makes them less likable. And they assume that if they don't look out for themselves, no one else will. Okay. And so those are assumptions that they have that lead them to engage in behaviors from column 2. And so if we move on here, yeah, so we'll give you some time to complete the 4th column as well. And here's some of the criteria that we're looking for as we're filling out that 4th column. So thinking of those big assumptions, there is some way in which you feel or have felt that that big assumption is true. Okay, so it's not just something you're saying or whatever, but like at some point that was true for you or is true, and you feel that that's true in some way. Number two is also clear how that big assumption makes one or more of the third column entries inevitable. Okay, and so those are your hidden commitments. And then the last criteria there, that these big assumptions make visible a bigger world to you that until now you have not allowed yourself to see or venture into. Okay, so just some things to keep in mind as you're filling out that last column.
And one of the ways I like to think about this is, you know, if I knew someone that had those column 3 hidden commitments, how might they see the world? That would make those column 3 make sense. So if you think about your column 3 as like almost like somebody else, what might their viewpoint on the world be? And that's one of the ways that's helped me generate these in the past.
Oh, nice. Okay. And so what we'll do is we'll get into our pairs again, and you can have a conversation with your partner on the column 4, the big assumptions as well as with the criteria that we have here, and just see what that looks like for you. Some of you are in different rooms as people have come and gone from the session here, so you may have a different partner than you did before, and I think that's okay. And we'll see you back here in a few minutes once you've had a chance to have that discussion. And so the rooms are open. Okay, so welcome back. And who has maybe just a couple of items from the column 4 that you want to share with the group, and we could maybe just hear one or two from a couple of people.
I'll go. We were just having a conversation. I think that people expect me to always have the right answer, and be able to move things forward in the right direction.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
It was super helpful to verbalize, to try to articulate things out loud.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, let's move forward then.
Okay, so you should now have a picture of your immune system at work, as well as the big assumptions that are holding and sort of propping that immune system up. So your homework then is going to be to find safe ways to test those big assumptions. Okay. And if you flipped your worksheet that you downloaded, or if you just downloaded it, if you flip it around, or if you just go to the second sheet, there's some resources that will help guide you guys through this process offline. And you know, just as an overview, you can proactively test those big assumptions, or you can do it passively simply by paying attention to situations where those big assumptions come into play. And so one thing we want to note here is that, you know, some of those big assumptions might actually be true, but it's highly likely that many of them are going to be false, or at least, you know, just partially false. And so it's reflecting on tests that you run or observations that you have in your daily life that actually disprove those assumptions, which is how we disrupt our immune systems and we eventually become released from them. As you start to become released from your immune system, you're going to notice yourself moving through these 4 very distinct stages that are listed on the screen here. And so you probably started the session here today in stage 1, which is unconsciously immune, where there's an immune system at work, but we're not yet aware of it, or maybe we haven't verbalized it or made it explicit yet. And you know, hopefully by going through this activity, you would have moved to stage 2, which is now consciously immune. So this is now, you know, there's still an immune system there, but we can now see it at work, and we can observe it. We can reflect on it. We can, inspect and adapt it, I guess, if you will. And as you work on your homework, which is really just paying attention, right? Which is really just watching this immune system play out over the next couple weeks or so. You're going to be invalidating a lot of those big assumptions that you've made. And as you do, you're going to find triggers that you can use to consciously disrupt and release yourself from that immune system so that you can act in the way that you want that's in accordance with your goal. And so this is stage 3, consciously released. And most people will see significant change here around 12 weeks or so at the latest. And, just a note on those triggers, they can be literally anything. They can be just taking a moment to take a breath and remind yourself of this. You can tie a string on your finger and put a Post-it beside your computer. Whatever it is for you, maybe it's a necklace or something. And then, after stage 3, we move to the unconsciously released stage. And this is where our immune system has been completely disrupted and in fact replaced by a more expansive one with new and bigger possibilities. And so you'll know you've reached this stage because you simply start to ask yourself, okay, well, what's next? What's the next immune system that I should bring into my conscious awareness and work on? And as I mentioned already, on the back of the worksheet that you guys downloaded, there's going to be some helpful instructions to guide you through that process over the next 12 weeks or so. So, as we wind this talk down, we want to just take a moment to hear from you. And I'm curious, what was your experience like going through the map?
The other thing I'll just mention too is this this tool isn't necessarily about things that aren't working, although it could be. It could also just be about things I want to improve, goals that you have, those types of things in any area of your life. So this works for anything. And oftentimes we focus on maybe fixing a work problem, and then we find out actually it's helpful with my family at home too, now that I'm changed or I'm different in some way. So lots of ways to apply this work as well. Yeah.
And just building on what Brock said about application, immune systems exist not just within us as individuals, but in groups as well. And so a team could go through this together and talk about, well, why are we having difficulty doing X or whatnot? And this works just as well. The one caveat there is generally the advice when you do this with a group is to have everybody do it at least once individually first, so that they get a feeling for how it works, and then you can do it and take a look at a system. Great.
So how do you recommend bringing this to your team? What kind of context would you bring this up? Or would you do it on a one-on-one basis? Would you do it in a retro? Where have you seen this be like contextually be successful to apply this?
Yeah. Leadership development programs and in that context is always great. Definitely, I mean, one-on-one coaching, absolutely. And then, as you pointed out, a retrospective is kind of something that a construct that we already have built in to have coaching conversations like this every 2 weeks or so. I personally prefer, going this deep with the team that I'm working with. But you'll need a lot of trust and making sure that you have the right coaching agreements and confidentiality and stuff in place if you are going to do something like this, because it is so personally revealing. But when people see the change that results from a process that goes this deep, they're generally going to be more inclined to do it again, because there's a lot more growth than just comes from, you know, what do we do well and what do we want to do differently next time.
A tool like this too, because we're focused on those adaptive challenges, right? So when you have a team that is stuck and they just like something keeps coming up, they just can't get past it and they can't seem to improve. Tools like this are often useful for those types of situations also, because it does go deeper and it helps the team see what they're not seeing currently.
Yeah, and just building on that too is, I'd say, and this is a personal lesson that Immunity to Change actually helps me with, is be careful becoming enamored with the tool itself. So, oh my God, I learned this amazing, powerful tool for change. I'm just going to bring it to my team and be like, hey, we got to do this. Start with that challenge. Start with, hey, Sherry, you're a Scrum Master. We can't move forward on this. We really need your help. Then you can be like, oh, okay, well, you know, there might be a tool that could help. Can I have permission to try it with you guys? That might be a good entry point. Yeah, good question.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll just wrap up here with a couple of last points. And so, you know, there's a list of resources here, and these slides are available to you as well. The first resource there is a recording of this talk that you can access. And I believe there's also going to be one for the YouTube channel for Agile Denver here. So we'll see about that as well. The worksheet is there and some other things. So there's some different things that you might want to check out in that regard. And what's next? There we go. Okay, so I guess that's it. All right. And so yeah, just thank you very much for having us here with you. We've really enjoyed sharing with you guys. Really appreciate anytime we do this talk. Always appreciative of groups when you go deep and actually engage in the tool with us. And I know that's happened here tonight. So, you know, really appreciate that and hope this is helpful to you for your growth and for working with your team and your clients. And so thank you very much for having us here.